Welcome to Innowera's Simplify SAP Create It Now series. Today we're going to create a script for the FB50 transaction. Let's start by opening up Process Runner. So now let's start by clicking the New button here. Now we select from the four technologies of Process Runner. We're going to select the transaction technology. I'm going to put in the code FB50. I'll click the Start Recording button. And now I just simply log into one SAP system across my SAP landscape. So most likely for starters, you're going to be in your sandbox or your quality environment, and then you'll be able to execute the script in your production environment. So now that I'm at the first screen here, I'm just going to pull up a data set that I have for this FB50 transaction. I like to have my data right in the background. Makes it really easy for me to type in the appropriate data. So right now I'm navigating at an API level, and so each of the fields that I put data into will be recorded in an active capacity. All of the screens that I navigate are being recorded, and then each of the fields that are on the screens are recorded as well. So I've got some old IDES data here. That's why I'm using this 2004 date. So I've got my document date, my posting date. Let's just put in the currency type here. And now for our reference, we'll just put in this REF11. And for my document header text, I'm just going to use this document 1. And now that this is set, I've got my header data here. I'm going to go ahead now and click the Enter button. Got this little message down here. I'm going to hit Enter one more time, and then also one more time for this last message here. Now the reason that I'm hitting Enter several times here, not only because of the messaging, but I want to separate my header data from my line item data. By separating these, the header data from the line item data, it's going to make it very easy for me when I'm doing the mapping of the script, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So now what's key here is I have to make sure that I enter my line item data in such a way that the data for the first item won't overwrite the data for the second item. So what I'm going to do first of all, I'm going to select the second line here. I'm going to put in this 47,600 here, and then we'll take the document credit item here. So let's start with the debit item here. My amount and document currency, just going to make that 50 here, and then I have my tax code, the V0, and now I just need to scroll over a bit, and let's get in that line item text. And then I think we also have the cost center as well. So let's just do a text here, line 1, and now I'll continue to scroll over here. Let's just get in the cost center. And so I'm going to move my SAP right over there. It's 1110 here. So let me get that in. All right, now that that is set, I'm going to highlight this row here. And now I'm going to select this Add Items. And the reason that I'm selecting the multiple items is because for some of these line items I am going to have multiple items. And so by selecting this Add Multiple Items, I'll be able to account for more than one or two more than the one line item if it's a debit or a credit. So I'm going to select this here. Notice that that automatically advances that forward. Now I can set up my second line item here. Again, I'm just going to select the second row. The reason that I'm selecting the second row is a kind of a best practice, as the majority of time you're going to need to select the second row in order not to overwrite line item data. Now with this particular transaction, I could have actually selected this first row and selected this Add Items. But again, for other transactions that I deal with, I have to select the second row. So I'm just going to kind of do this as a best practice here. So now I'm not so concerned about getting in this data exactly for this first document here, because what I'm actually doing is creating the script. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to select the credit indicator here now, and my amount is going to be 50 again, as I'm just setting up an automation process. So now let's get that 1110 cost center, and then the last thing that we need is that tax code, and then we also do have that line item data as well. And it's actually not that critical that I get this second line item data precise, because I am setting up an automation script and I really only need the recording on one. but I do need to make sure that this balances out here. So that's really the whole key, is I want to make sure that this balances out. And so here's my last tax code field here. And so now that this is set, again, I'm going to highlight this row. I'm going to select this add multiple items here. And now I'm finished. I'm going to click save. I've now finished the script recording process. So let's go to process runner here. I've finished the recording, but now we need to set up the mapping so that we have a fully automated transaction script. So I'm going to push OK here. And now we're going to be taken into what's called the Mapper tab of Process Runner. And what I like to do first is start out with a simple view so that I can map my data very easily. And then I'm going to go to the advanced view where I'm going to set up the looping. Now I also need to link this script that I'm in the process of finishing out here to the external data that I have. So I'm going to select right from this drop down here, External Excel. And now I'm just going to, let's see here, let me do this one more time. There we go, there's my pop-up I'm looking for. I'm going to select this FB50 Data Excel spreadsheet. And this view will quickly refresh here. And now I've got the data that I need to map. So let's start with the document date, that is for column A. The currency key is actually C, so let me just do a drag and drop here. Change that currency key to C. The posting date, I'm going to make B. And now we've got that reference document number is going to be D. Our header text is E, and that is already at E. I'm just dragging to make sure here. Then we've got our account number. Okay, this is going to come from column F. We have the debit credit indicator coming from column G. We have the amount coming from H. The tax code is going to be I. We have the item text from J and the cost center from K. Now I don't need to map the rest of these because I only recorded them for the sake of balancing the transaction so that SAP would allow me to save the data and thus be able to finish or end the script creation process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to deselect these additional fields because, again, I'm setting up an automation file. I don't need to repeat this. So before I do that, though, I'm going to go to this advanced view now. And once I select the advanced view, now each of the screens that I've navigated are showing, and each of the active fields under those screens are showing as well. Now, if I needed to add additional fields for the script that I'm creating, perhaps I had some new data, I could select this all rows. Once I do this, each of the additional fields that are on the screens that I navigated, those would be available to me, and then I would simply put a check in the box for those fields that I want to add. But since I'm not going to be adding anything, I'm going to go back to this active rows here. All right, so now what I need to do is deselect that additional line item that I recorded because I don't need to repeat this because I'm going to have an automation process where I'm setting up the loop. So now I'm just going to put a check in this additional, the second screen here, as I don't need to repeat this with the automation process. So I'm just going to select each of these, deselect these basically. And so the last one here is my cursor position, which was on 2. Okay, so now I'm going to repress this active rows here, so that eliminates that that second line item here. And now what I need to do is loop this first line item. So just right from this drop down here, I'm going to select the start loop. Process Runner is automatically going to put the end loop just before the save. So here, if I scroll down here, this was the save. And so now I've got the loop set up. And so now the key here is to set up a proper blocking type. And what goes by default is this on value, ignore blank, and it goes, the block value is A. And so if I take a look at my data here, what that means is it's going to, on the value, it's going to start the loop. It's going to ignore these blank spots. And then when it encounters the second value here, it's going to know to stop the loop. So that will actually work perfect for me, so I can leave it on the default setting. Now, you may have a particular case where perhaps that isn't going to work for you. And then what you can do is you can select from these different various block types as well. So you could select on a blank cell in column, on change, ignore blank, on change. And then what you can do is just change this particular block value here, which in my case would be column A, but you could change that to another column if necessary. And so I'm not going to go too heavily into that just for the sake of time here. So now that this is set, I'm going to save this. I'm going to go over to the Home tab here. I'm going to put an appropriate start row and end row. I can have, as Excel has a 1.3 million row limit, I can make that as high, basically as high a number as I want here. Process runner does stop once it encounters 5 blank rows, and so I don't really have to worry about my end row too much here. So let's go ahead now and run this. Just going to push the run button here. Now execute this FB50 process, make sure that my script is working. Okay, and there we can see that these documents have been created. So let's just take a quick look here in SAP. I'm going to put in FB03. Now we'll put in the document number and our company code. And then I've got the fiscal year. Just hit the enter here. And there we can see that I was successfully able to create this document, which means my loop is working properly. So now actually my script is done. So as the designer, I'm done creating the script, but what I want to do is touch this up a little bit for the sake of my end user. I'm going to click on this message settings button here. I'm going to go to hyperlink, select this add hyperlink box. From the drop down here, this insert sample, I'm going to select FB03, and then for this I value here, where my document date is coming from, and so I'm just going to change this question mark here to A. Click the OK button. This little FB03 link is going to be a nice feature for my end user. So now the last step that I need to do is embed this script into an Excel spreadsheet, and then my end user is going to be able to execute this transaction right from Excel. So from the drop down here, I'm going to select Save as Excel Add-in Ready File. There is the script. It's going to be embedded in this particular Excel file here. I'll click the Generate button here. And so now what I've done is I've embedded the script right inside the Excel workbook. So now if I just maximize this here, I go to the Process Runner Excel Add-in tab. There you can see that the script is embedded here. And so now if I want to execute this as an end user, let's just delete this here. Okay, so now that link is working here. So now if I click on this Show in SAP GUI, this executes the FB03 transaction. Now my end user is able to use Excel as the interface to SAP and can just check on the documents that they create with that nice FB03 link. And that is how you create a multi-line transaction script for the FB50 transaction. Thanks for watching, and be sure to look out for more videos in this series. And please continue to visit us at Innowera.com for the latest updates in our products and some more training videos.